Hi there, I'm Reed Price. I'm the director of the Senior Community Center on Bainbridge Island, and we're here to talk with Michael Cox about climate, a group out of the Interfaith Council that is working on climate. I want to start, though, by acknowledging that we are meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Puget Sound Coast Salish people, the Suquamish tribe, that has lived on these lands and adjoining waters since time immemorial. And speaking of environment and climate, we continue to learn a lot from the Suquamish and other uh, Native Americans about how to be better stewards of our land and waters, and we're grateful for that. I also want to thank the folks at Fieldstone, which offers memory care, assisted living, and independent living up on Rolling Bay. They have a lovely campus there where the old Messenger House was, and they are offering day stay and respite programs. And if you'd like to have a free lunch, you can go and check out the bar and grill there. Call Celia or Jamie at 206-594-1010. Check out the website, fieldstonecommunities.com. Michael Cox, thank you very much for joining us today. I know that there's been a group, I have not personally been involved, but I know there's been a group of folks from a number of faith communities who've been meeting as part of a climate circle, as part of the Interfaith Council. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, Ray. Thanks for asking me. And I'm assuming people know what the Interfaith Council is, but real briefly, it's a group of faith groups that have come together once a month to meet, and they do a number of things you may have heard of. They do baccalaureate, they do the crop walk, they do super suppers, they do some really great work. But we also 2 years ago formed something called the Climate Circle. And why we formed that is a number of us here on the island had been working for a number of years on climate change, trying to figure out how we can do our part to reduce our carbon footprints and how we become more resilient on the island. And what we're noticing is we have the same people at all our stuff, like 40 to 50, the same people. So we said, we got to expand this out. So came up with the idea of, gosh, we have all these different faith groups around the island, and they're active, they're interested. So we decided, well, let's tap into that and let's see if we can get some of the faith groups to come together to work together on the climate issues. And so we did. We reached out, and right now we have probably 22 members from various different faith groups that are part of the climate change circle. So that was kind of the genesis of why we got together. And now we've done a whole bunch of activities we can talk a little bit about more if we want to get into that. Let's see, what else?
Well, so I'm thinking that one of the questions I might have, which I kind of can anticipate the answer to, but why do faith groups or faith traditions and a response to the climate crisis make sense as a pairing?
No, that's a great question, Reed. And, I think each one is a little bit different. But what I found, I go to Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church, and one of our principles is that we say we're part of the interdependent web of life. And so I think what that means to many of us is that we're a part of the whole nature. It's not humans and everybody else. And as a part of that, we know that we humans have contributed quite a bit, not the sole, but we're a main contributor to the warming of the planet, the increase in CO2. So other faith traditions, let's Catholics, for example, probably one of the most articulate speaker on climate change and the need to do it, because in his mind, the Pope, the Catholic Church indicates that we are a part of this whole universe and we need to take care of it. And the Pope has come out with some incredible, what are they called? Incredible encyclicals. Thank you, Ray. Encyclicals that you read them and you go, oh my goodness. And then once you start going into the other faiths, Jewish faith, Kol Shalom, you get the Quakers, you get the Buddhists, you get the Lutherans, Episcopalians. And there is this root feeling, or this not feeling, but belief that we have a responsibility here on earth to care for the earth, and to do the best we can. And one of the huge things we can do is try to figure out how we can be a part of the solution on climate change, and how we can do it together as people of faith, believing that yes, we have a responsibility here to act.
I know there's an award that the Interfaith Council has given out that they call the Tikkun Olam Award, which is based on the Jewish tradition that humans partner with the divine, that neither God nor humans alone can fix what's broken in the world, but together we can. And it means that there's a part, there's a job for humans in the process. You can't just wait for divine intervention.
Yeah, no, I think you're completely correct. And I've worked in the environmental field for 40 years. And so I've seen firsthand that how when we think humans that we are in control and that it's us and the rest of it, we can do whatever we want to it. It's not a good outcome by any means. And we do have the power in our own lives, individually and collectively, I think, to do something about climate change. And that's what we're trying to do, is provide an avenue where we go out and we kind of provide information, education, you might want to call it, about what we can do individually and collectively. So what we've done is we've gone around to multiple churches and synagogues and other places now, and we've been invited in to talk about it and to give a sermon. And then after the service, have people come and have a conversation about what they can do in their church, again, individually and collectively. And it's been very successful. We've been to St. Barnabas, we've been to Bethany, we've been to Cedars, we've been to Grace, we've been to Kol Shalom, we've been to a whole bunch of different churches. And what we find is a real receptiveness, that people want to do something. The question you always get is, what can I do? Everybody throws their hands up. The problem is too big. And I get that. I worked in the Environmental Protection Agency for a long time, and it is daunting. What can I do? So a big part of what we're trying to do is to say, here are things you can do in your own life. And if you want, here are ways to connect up on the state level, local, state, and federal level to help change policy. Because again, it needs to be a systematic, this is my view, system change for sure, but it also needs to come, I think, from the bottom up, and we can do stuff on our own that is independent of what those system changes are. So that's probably a longer answer.
Well, no, that's great. I wonder, so when you talk about community things, there are things that, say, in our organizations, in our churches or synagogues or here at the senior center, there are things that we could do that would be steps in the way. Talk a little bit about some of those
well,
things.
For example, at the senior center, you have solar power. And I think you're getting more, I can't remember. But that, just for example, there's a program that for churches, right now, Grace, I think St. Barnabas, and maybe another one, there's a program where they can go out and get solar panels for their facility. It's a part of a federal program. So they can make their building much more, one, energy efficient, two, running on solar power. And so they can then reduce their carbon footprint at their facility. So a lot of times when we go and we say, we can help you, or we can talk to you about how you could do this to your building. So people then feel a sense of ownership. We are doing something here in our own congregation to reduce our carbon footprint, reduce our energy, do better on our waste disposal, those kinds of things. So that's what you can do kind of on a church level. On an individual level, we can go in and talk to them about, there's these called carbon footprint toolkits that you can go in and help people understand how to reduce their carbon footprint in their own lives, in terms of how they manage their home, in terms of energy, how much they drive, those kinds of things. So we're just trying to provide information that allows people to make those changes for themselves and for their congregations.
And so you said you've been meeting for about 2 years, and you've had this trip around to a variety of different congregations, and other things that you've been working on. I know you have a pretty active steering committee. I think we're talking to a number of you to see who might be available for this call, for example.
Oh yeah, no, there's some passionate people on this. I'll tell you right now. Yeah, people are passionate about it. What I find, and I'll answer your question, what I find fascinating for me, I'm a scientist. And so, I'm very linear. And many people in our group are much more, come from a much more spiritual or a faith-based tradition. And it is amazing listening to them and how passionate they are about making this, what they call creation, a better place. So that's very inspiring. But other things, climate cafes. Rick Freeman, I know, who's a part of the senior center, has done a number of climate cafes where we go in, and they're great. They get people together, and it's not there to try to persuade anybody that climate change. It's more for people to talk about kind of what they're doing, and to be honest, some of the anxieties and fears that come along with climate change. Because I'll be honest, and I have found, I used to start doing this. I'd go out and I'd tell them, oh, the world, it's horrible, all this bad stuff. That does not work. Does not work. People don't want to hear it. Not that they don't want to hear it. They want hope. So when I go out and talk to people now, that's the first thing I go. I say, yeah, this is a tough problem, but I truly believe, I've worked in this climate change for many years. I do think there's hope. And that's what people respond to. And that's why I think going into churches with that message, there is hope. There's things that we can do, like individually and collectively, to combat this issue. And that seems to resonate with folks. So we've also done a number of what we call Web of Life, where we bring people together to talk about just their connection to nature in a kind of a broader sense than just climate change. And then to try to get them activated. We've tried to get youth involved, but that's a challenge. Do you have any ideas on how to get youth engaged in this? Because let's be honest, it's their planet. I mean, we screwed it up. So they're the ones who got to live with it. And I always say, Al Gore had a great line. I use it all the time. He says, what you don't want is your kids coming to you, now or later and going, Dad, what the heck were you doing? How did you let this happen? And so that's what drives me, to be honest, my kids and their grandkids. That's what makes me want to help. But the youth, it's been a challenge, to be honest, to try to get them engaged. There's lots of other stuff going on, I know, in their lives, but we're trying to do that now, is to get them more engaged.
Neat. Yeah, I think that's a challenge. We recognize also the benefit for people our age and a little older when you start to talk to kids and actually engage on these issues. They're definitely aware of them, and it gives us energy and hope to work with young people because we see that there's the potential for change. And yes, we are not totally responsible as a generation for where we are today. It's our parents and our grandparents and our great-great-grandparents. But the question really is, what did you do while you had a chance to affect change? What did you do to try to move this perception of perception and actuality of what we're doing? So, that sounds wonderful. I don't know if whether Francis or Rita or whoever else is on the call here has a question or comment at this point. I have a couple more, but yeah, Francis.
Well, I find myself in a frustrating position. I no longer am a homeowner. I live in an apartment, senior living, independent living. And, when you're a homeowner, you can pursue things like solar power or doing something to minimize the needs of your yard, planting. What am I trying to say?
Get rid of the of an expanse of grass, for example, or stop using.
Oh, my biggest issue is, I haven't measured it and I've decided I'm gonna get a quart container. I have to run my water about 35, 40 seconds. Now, that may not seem long to you, but that's a lot of water, waiting for it to get hot. And I don't know what I can do about that because, it's probably one size fits all hot water heater for the building. And it just breaks my heart every time I turn on the water. And if I were at home, if I were in my house and that was an issue, I could save the water and water the plants with it.
Oh,
Well, well, Francis, I would say, first of all, you already did a huge thing by going from a house to an apartment, in the terms of your carbon footprint. I mean, the house is generally gonna take a lot more energy. It's gonna take a lot more water, all those things. So going to an apartment is a step that people may not think about, that they're doing something, but in fact, they are doing something. And the second part is what you can do. That is a real conundrum because a lot of the programs are focused on houses. And apartments, as you say, sometimes you don't have control over everything. So what we're trying to help the city work on is how can we engage in multi-residential apartments and other things? And how can we work with, let's say, PSE, Puget Sound Energy, to come up with programs that might be able to help places like you. For example, maybe you could have what they call an on-demand hot water heater. And so that would be a lot different than having a centralized one. So there are ways, but I'll be honest, it gets harder when you come down to the apartment level other than a house level. It just isn't the focus sometimes. So, but I don't know if that helped. But again, just moving to an apartment, you're doing a lot just right there.
I do think that there's a possibility of raising some of the issues that Michael is saying in, say, a homeowners meeting or an outreach to your landlord or whoever you're renting from. You had something else, Francis?
Oh, I just wanted to ask, this is off subject a little bit, but not really, because I would like a faith group to be active in. And I used to belong to Unitarian Universal, and I'm looking for one that's nearby or that I could get to. Is there a Unitarian Universal on Bainbridge Island or within reasonable commute?
Yeah, no, okay, here I'm proselytizing for my own, yes, it's at the Island School. It meets on Sundays at 10 o'clock. And I don't know, where are you, Francis? Where do you live?
And I'm on Wood Avenue, about 2 blocks up from the water.
Oh,
And then
okay,
senior, independent senior living, which is close to Madison House, and I'm in what's called Winslow Manor. But
okay.
anyway, I don't know where Island School, is that the private school, the one that,
It's up on
Yeah.
Day Road.
It's up
So-
on Day Road. And Francis, if you want to, we could, if you want, there may be somebody from our congregation who lives down in that area, if you need a ride or something, people.
I'll put you in contact with Michael and you can talk about it after the call, but
Sure. No,
there
that'd
you
be
go,
great.
a little proselytizing or membership raising or whatever. Yeah, there
Hey,
is
Reed, she asked,
it's fine, it's fine. Rita, what do you have here?
oh, well, I was gonna say, when Francis said, what could she do? I was gonna say, save the water, and then if you've got, I didn't know if you had a deck or anything that you could water your plants with it. But the other thing is, couldn't you put it in the toilet so that it would get reused?
put it in the toilet, oh, in the tank?
Yeah, or just in the, you know,
Yeah, I know, I'd have to have an awfully big container. Because,
oh,
the water's running, well,
right.
it's hot, so,
Oh, I'm thinking like a gallon milk jug or something. Maybe that's,
It's,
But I think Rita has a good point that a lot of these have HOA. I don't know where you live. They have the groups who come together and talk about issues related to the facility. So
Yeah, I think if you're living in assisted living or independent living, a group home that is managed, this one by Bainbridge Senior Living, I believe, or if you were at Fieldstone or any of these, that there's an obligation by the state to be able to have um, a residence council, which is able to put things forward to the owners of the quote unquote boarding house, which I think is its legal situation.
And we do have actually, I guess fairly new. I've only been here 9 months, but they just formed a residents council. But on an individual basis, I've talked to different residents and they all say, oh, it's not a problem for me. Oh, it's not a problem for me. So I can't believe that I'm the only apartment that doesn't have hot water flowing fairly routine. I mean, I understand it's going to take a little bit, but anywhere I've ever lived, it's never taken as long as it has here. And everyone else just kind of shrugs it off. So it's not an issue.
Yeah, well, I think that's the awareness part of it that you are representing, but also that Michael's thinking about and the climate circle is thinking about for a lot of different ways and that we live. And so, good on you for being aware, and maybe raising the issue will open the eyes of somebody who's turning on the water next door. They say, oh yeah.
And Reed, it's interesting because I've been to two and I'm forgetting the one, there's one down by docks and another one that I was invited to come and talk to people about climate change in general, but more specifically what they can do. And I'll have to say, I did a lot of presentations. I don't ever remember harder questions than I was getting from these folks. I was going, oh man, come on, stop it. You're beating me up here, man. This is tough. But they are incredibly aware. And I thought that was great. I was really enthused. And I don't know what they did, but they were going, okay, that's great. We got some information here. We'll go out and see what we can do. So that's another avenue of things you can do.
So do you welcome new members to the circle? You said there are about 20 folks involved right now.
Oh yeah, no, we definitely do. We'd love to have, we meet once a month and we try to spread it around. So each month we have a different person, a different faith, kind of come in and talk a little bit about why they're there, and then share some of the work that they're doing at their particular congregation. So it's been a real education for, I think, all of us to find out that there is this common theme, I think, running through a lot of the different faith groups in terms of the direction we want to go. So I'm definitely looking for people who want to join us.
And so if someone was watching this and wanted to do so, what would you recommend? Would they, if they're...
Well, a couple things. They could get a hold of me. I'm kind of the coordinator of it. They could, or other people they might know, the Interfaith Council, they could go to there. We don't right now have a website other than kind of Interfaith Council. We're working on that, but we don't have anything specifically I can direct them to, other than I'm happy to talk to anybody. And I don't know, Reed, how that my name and email and phone number could get out, if that would be possible attached.
Yeah, if anybody's interested, they can certainly send a note to info@biseniorcenter.org and I'll put them in touch with you.
Okay, no, that'd be great. That'd be great. For sure. What, Reed, could I have a question? Just go back to the youth. I know I'm going off topic a little bit. Maybe we can have this conversation. I'd be fascinated to talk to you or others about how you do engage youth and how you do it here on the island. And maybe it's a bigger conversation not here, but that is really something we've been trying to do and not been very successful.
Yeah, I think that that the best experience that we've had is when there are a specific event or action that we're asking for a limited time. So the commitment is time limited, or we have had a wonderful partnership for several years with Bainbridge Youth Services on a program called Silver Tech, where the kids come down on early release, not every week, but every other week. And it's different kids who are available. But we work through Bainbridge Youth Services and they have let the word out. And then if there are young people who are interested in helping seniors with technology, they put their name in. And then we know they're going to be like 5 to 6 people on a given Monday, and we line up folks who need some help, and then we put them together. There was a senior to senior program that we did several years ago where kids were committing to meeting to talk with seniors for a specific, period of time. It was going to be like 4 to 6 meetings, with different questions involved. And, I think that's great. And, we'd be happy if there's any way that we can help facilitate that through the Senior Community Center. Let me know, because I think that those conversations are important.
Mhm.
And lots of great ideas come from people at various points, like, from Francis's perspective as somebody who's downsizing, or from a young person's perspective who's looking at the way the world has been.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yes, Francis.
Have you worked with with scouts at all? When I was living in Suquamish,
I want to raise my hand.
we found the scouts were so helpful during the big canoe journeys. It took more than the tribal members could do because they were participating in the journey itself. And we had such good luck with a couple of local Boy Scout troops, and they learned a lot. One of them commented to his mother, he said, "I see all these kids waiting on their grandparents or their older folks." And her mother said, "Yes, it's part of their culture that nobody eats before the elders eat, and that young people take care of the older people." And this young boy was so impressed that
There you go.
scout troop and said, "We should do something with our elders." He said, "I should visit my grandma more, I know." So, and of course, Boy Scouts, have their pledge is to do
Yep.
more.
Boys and girls. There's also Girl Scouts active here on the island. Tom, you have a question or comment?
Yes, you were mentioning solar installations. Is there any progress on what they call community solar? We live in a condo and we really need to, we have a great roof for it, but it doesn't seem like the state has any programs for, for community solar, meaning
Yeah.
a shared solar installation.
Right now, Tom, that's a great question. A couple things. One, Puget Sound Energy does have what they call a community solar program. It's a little different in that and we can talk more if you're interested. They would come in and they would put a solar on, but a lot of the solar then goes back into the grid. It's not necessarily, you get credit for that, but it doesn't power your home. The state is in the process of trying to roll out a community solar program, but that probably won't happen until next year. There's a lot of federal money through something called the Inflation Reduction Act. So they're going to be doing that. And this is just another thing we're doing in September at Woodward, we're going to have something called the Electrification Expo. And we're going to have experts on solar panels. We're going to have state, local, federal people there talking about the programs that are available to homeowners, both homeowners and multi-residential. So that might be an opportunity to learn some more about those programs. There's a lot of them out there, but it's incredibly confusing. And so we got to figure out how to communicate that better so you can take advantage of those programs. Because they're out there, but it's hard to know unless you're really in the know. I don't know if that
you need to know what questions to ask or what kinds of equipment it does. There are things like rebates, I know, but if you don't know what you're looking for, you might not qualify at the end of the line for what you want. But thank you, Tom, and I'll put you in touch with Michael after this so that you can communicate with him directly.
Thank you.
And thank you for giving us a heads up on the Electrification Expo. You're as someone who follows this, what is your perception about some of the concerns that people have about whether the electric grid, which is the most efficient way to try to transmit energy when we're trying to not use fossil fuels, Risks to the grid. Any comments about how that piece of the pie is going?
That is a great question, Reed. You're too informed.
I'm trying to challenge with those folks at Madison House with the good questions.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it's a real challenge for a number of reasons. Because right now, for example, the amount of renewable energy, solar and wind, that could come online if there was the capacity to put it into the grid and send it out is incredible. I don't remember the statistics, but when I heard it, it blew my mind. One of the challenges is that much of the wind and solar is produced where? In places that there aren't people. And so then you got to get it to somebody. And to do that, many times you have to have these huge transmission lines. And many times people don't want them in their backyard. I get it. That makes sense. And second, and I know people would argue on both sides of this, the electrical grid in many things like gas pipelines and other things, for example, the federal government has some authority to say, no, we're going to run that pipeline through the different states. For grids, they don't have the same authority. So it gets up really complicated when you're trying to get something from the deserts of Arizona up to even to LA or something like that. It just is a challenge. So to answer your question, I don't have any great answers to that other than it is what I think probably the biggest question. How do we get the power that we could produce with renewables into that grid to the people? And a lot of smart people working on it, but we still got a ways to go on that for sure.
And I'm also thinking that the other piece of it, or the other part of it, might be thinking about ways that when you can create power locally, how can you use that as a source yourself, or how can you think about ways to reduce the pressure on existing systems?
Mhm.
I know I have a couple of friends who have done rain collection systems on the island for watering, for example, which means you don't have to get anybody involved or even drill a well or anything. You're using water that's coming from the sky and directing where it lands on your property.
Oh, another interesting, not to go into politics, but if you look at wind energy, some of the married states, Kansas, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, some of those states are getting 40% of their electricity from wind. I mean, it's phenomenal. And they want to get more because one, as you said, it's decentralized many times. They don't have to worry, get all hooked up in this big grid thing. But they're finding that that's the path forward for them. The issue sometimes is that the wind and the sun don't always shine. So in tandem to that, there's this whole work going on battery storage. What happens when those things aren't working? And that's a very valid issue. Some people would argue that no, that's true. So we need what they call peaker plants, like natural gas plant there to solve that gap. So the battery storage is a huge issue in terms of making sure that we are going to be able to have reliable electricity that we all want here. So that's the second big issue. The grid, battery storage really are being worked on, but we still have ways to go. It's getting there, but it's got a ways to go.
Rita, yeah. And
It
then
seems-
Helen.
There was I watched 60 Minutes last night, and the governor of Wyoming was on, and it was very interesting. And he said, I keep telling my people climate change is real, and he's a Republican. So he says he's taken a lot of flack about that. But I did not realize that Wyoming has the most wind. They still produce the most coal. It is amazing the stuff they have. And they're trying to put in this big wind farm, and they were talking to this guy, and they're going to put in transmission lines. And he said, when I started this, I thought it would take a couple of years to get permits for approval and everything. He said it's been 17 years. So the pace is very slow. But, if we can get some people together there, I think there's probably some real some real good things that could happen. So I was just heartened to hear the governor of the state say, yes, we're pushing toward that. And then they want anybody who wants to come, and they're trying to attract as many people who want to try new things out, and do that as well. So that's really good. At least there's a place that people are kind of welcome to try out some new, quote, crazy ideas, because you never know what's going to happen with those crazy ideas. They could just.
Yeah, I was listening to something, a test that's going on about trying to figure out if they could recharge trucks using an electrified portion of highway. I think they're, and so I mean, it's amazing the things people are thinking about. Michael, do you have a response to what Rita was talking
know,
about?
Rita, the permitting issue is, again, one of those crazy things. I mean, to be perfectly honest, in order to make this work, the permitting system has to be reformed. It just is crazy to take 17 years. It discourages people who are good or trying to do the right thing. And so what they do, they go back to what is there, coal, or whatever is easy. And so that has to change too, and it's slowly trying to, but again, that's trying to huge ship and trying to change that. But in order for it to work, you're going to really need to do that. But yeah, what I find heartening is that's why I kind of use those. Those are red states. The red states are really solar, not as much, but wind. They are on the forefront of that for sure. So even in our state, though, there's some big issues, challenging issues over in the kind of Tri-Cities area, Horse Farm. I'm forgetting the name of it right now.
Horse
There was
Heaven
a huge wind
Hills.
project, and it got derailed a bit because of the community folks. And there's other issues. There was cultural issues and Native American stuff. So it's this, this balance sometimes, and especially because I'm in the environmental field, this balance between the environment and having this new energy, and where's the mix there. So it makes for interesting discussions.
Okay, Helen, if you'll unmute and maybe turn the camera a little bit towards yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, is it okay now? I wish
So I can hear you.
I'm just moving my
Yeah, a little closer to the computer, I think.
Okay,
I heard Tom just fine.
yeah, we're here together.
No,
Anyway.
can you
I was going back still.
turn the computer, can you, or turn you? There you go.
There,
That's interesting.
okay. I'm looking
Well,
straight at it.
Great.
Okay. Well, I'm just thinking about going back to what people feel that they can do, and being aware of surroundings and the way you live, everyday things, going to the grocery store, shopping, making choices, things that for the wrappers or the way things are presented that are so wasteful, and that you could avoid that. And things like washing your hands, turn off the water while you're out soaping, and then turn it off. Reusing your water that you wash your vegetables in, water your plants. Our kids do this at their homes. We did this when they were really young, and it's just amazing how it lived with them, and they're adults. So
Yeah, I think your point, and you're breaking up a little bit, but your point about the idea of a lot of little things add up, and the idea that we train people, our young people, when they're young. I noticed that my grandson, who's 4, who was a COVID baby, is the first kid I know who learned how to cough into his elbow instead of into his hand, because that's how, I mean, it was when he was learning how to cough or sneeze, that was the rule. And the same thing that you were talking about, turning off the water when you wash your hand in between, while you're putting soap on your hands. And I know my wife loves to hang up the laundry outside, or in the winter in a drying rack inside. We try to use when you're doing sheets in a hurry, we're still using the dryer. But there are a lot of little things like that, which, yeah, if I do it, it doesn't make a difference. But if I do it, and Helen does it, and Rita does it, and we start to make it the way we do business, it will add up. Fair enough, right, Michael? I know it.
Oh, yeah, that's what I preach. Again, people go, well, it's got to be systemic change. And I go, yeah, sure, I get that. But systemic change sometimes comes from us. Just for example, again, I know we're not getting political, but Washington State, a couple years ago, when the House and the Senate went Democratic and the governor was Democratic, lots of climate stuff got passed and lots of good stuff happened. So elections matter. But I think a hopeful thing is there's still some climate deniers, but I think a lot of people are now believing it's there, and then, which is good. And then we can have the discussion about what to do about it. For so long, I'd go places. My job was to go around the Northwest and talk to farmers. It was to go to talk to this person and that person. And what I found, one, you say hope. Two, you don't say climate change in many places. You go and you talk about what they're concerned about. In Eastern Washington, they're concerned about water. And you talk to them. And who's better, to be honest, to know what's happening on the land than a farmer? I grew up in Walla Walla. I grew up in farming. That's who you talk to. You go to the tribes. You go to the oystermen. Those are the people who are living on the land. They're seeing these changes. Anyway, I'm not going to try to convince anybody on climate change here, but that's what really moved me, is going and talking to the people who live on the land and are seeing the changes firsthand.
Well, I've found this a lovely conversation. Thank you very much for taking the time, Michael, to talk with us. And I please remind me ahead of the Electrification Expo so we can help promote that.
Oh,
And if there's an activity around a conversation, I'm sure that we would love to host it if it makes sense, with kids and not so kids folks, people of all ages. And if anybody is interested you can find out if you're involved in a faith community about whether they are connected, or you can contact the Interfaith Council, and they'll put you in touch with Michael, or as I said, info@biseniorcenter.org.
well, Ray,
Really
thank you for
appreciate
this opportunity. This is great. Great question. It's a very aware group here. And it was great talking to you.
You too. Have a lovely afternoon.
Okay.